Before most people ever decide who they are, someone else usually tells them who they are first. Sometimes it's parents, sometimes it's teachers, sometimes it's friends, culture, or failures in life. And after hearing the same things long enough, people stop hearing opinions and they start hearing truth. You're difficult. You're not leadership material. You'll never succeed. You're too emotional. You're lazy. You're not enough. And over time, those words stop sounding like external voices and become your very identity. But what happens when the story you inherited isn't the story you were meant to live? Welcome to the Hero Hour, the podcast about transformation, resilience, identity, and rewriting the narratives that shape our lives. I'm Nathaniel D. Boree, and today we're talking about something that affects every single one of us: the narratives we inherit. Because most people did not consciously choose the story they believe about themselves. They absorbed it. And whether we realize it or not, those inherited stories shape almost everything about us: our confidence, our fears, our relationships, our ambitions, our self worth, and sometimes even the future we believe we deserve. So, what exactly is an inherited narrative? Well, to me, an inherited narrative is this: a story about yourself you absorbed before you consciously chose it. And that story can come from almost anywhere. It can come from family, school, religion, culture, friendships, failure, social media, trauma, expectations. Some narratives empower people, others quietly imprison them. And the difficult thing is many of these beliefs are absorbed so early that people don't even realize they're carrying them. They just assume this is who I am. But a lot of what people call identity is actually repetition. I think childhood is where many of these narratives begin. Not because parents are evil, not because families are perfect, but because children absorb language deeply. Children don't have fully developed filters yet. So when a child repeatedly hears, you're the smart one, you're the difficult one, you're lazy, you're emotional, you're gifted, you're irresponsible, those statements can slowly become a child's identity. And sometimes even positive labels can become pressure. A child constantly called the smart one may grow terrified of failure. A child praised only for achievement may begin believing their worth depends entirely on performance. And on the other side of the aisle, children who are constantly criticized for something may begin building their identity around limitations. The dangerous part is that repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity starts feeling like truth. But inherited narratives don't stop in childhood. Society constantly tells people who they're supposed to be, what success looks like, what masculinity looks like, what confidence looks like, what beauty looks like, what achievement looks like. And a lot of people spend years performing versions of themselves that don't actually feel authentic. They chase approval, validation, status, acceptance, not because it fulfills them, but because they inherited a definition of worth that told them they had to. And social media intensifies this. People compare their lives to curated identity. And over time, people start feeling behind in a race they never consciously agreed to. I think one of the most destructive inherited narratives people carry is the idea that failure defines identity. Here's the thing: failure is part of being human. Everyone fails, everyone struggles, everyone experiences moments where life doesn't go according to plan. But somewhere along the way, people stop saying, I failed, and start believing I am a failure. That shift, it's dangerous because failure is an event. It's not an identity. And when people fuse their identity to their worst moments, they stop believing transformation is possible. And one reason people struggle to rewrite these narratives is because familiar identities feel safe, even painful ones. A person can spend years trapped inside an identity they hate simply because it's familiar to them. Because uncertainty is frightening, growth is uncomfortable, reinvention requires vulnerability. And if someone has believed something about themselves long enough, letting go of that belief can almost feel like losing a piece of themselves, even if the belief is harmful. That's why transformation is difficult, not because people are weak, but because identity is powerful. So, how do people begin rewriting inherited narratives? Well, I think the first step is awareness. You have to identify the story before you begin challenging it. You have to ask questions like, who told me what to believe? Why do I believe this? And is this objectively true? Or is this simply a narrative repeated long enough and often enough that it started feeling permanent and real? And then comes the difficult part: choosing intentionally, choosing who you want to become, not based solely on fear, not based solely on approval, not based solely on survival, but based on meaning, based on growth, based on the kind of person you genuinely want to be. And I don't think rewriting your narrative means pretending the past never happened. I think it means refusing to let the past permanently dictate your future. Maybe you're listening to this right now, carrying a narrative that no longer serves you. Maybe you believe you're behind, you're not capable, you've missed your opportunity. Or maybe who you've been is all you'll ever be. But I want you to consider something. What if that belief isn't true? What if it's simply a story you inherited through repetition, fear, pain, or experience? And what if your life changes the moment you stop treating that narrative as permanent? Because awareness creates possibility, and possibility is where transformation begins. So, here's this week's Heroes Challenge. Take some time this week to identify one narrative you've inherited about yourself. Write it down, then ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Who or what reinforced it? And most importantly, is this belief helping me become the person I want to be? Because sometimes growth begins the moment people realize they don't have to keep carrying every story they were handed. The stories we inherit can shape us, but they do not have to imprison us. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. And sometimes rewriting your life begins with realizing the story you believed about yourself was never truly yours to begin with. Thanks for spending another hero hour with me. And until next time, be the hero of your own story and rewrite the narrative.